fish. Yep. Oh. Yes. Oh, big one. Oh, yep. Yep. Oh, good fish. Oh, yep, got it. Yep, beautiful. There we go, folks. Have a look at that on the burner. Yep. Oh. Yep, got it. There it is. Good jack too. Yeah. The jacks love these burners on the pontoons. Yes! Oh, big one! Oh, it's a big jack! Oh, there we go. Beautiful big jack. This is insane fun. And this jack burner, I've developed it to bring to you guys so you guys can enjoy some of this crazy fun, insane excitement, challenging fishing, all for yourself. Well, welcome to the Jack Burner Fishing Guide. I'm so stoked that you've had the interest in my lures and these videos to help you find your own Mangrove Jack adventure. There's been a whole lot go into this. I'm going to share with you in this video all the design features that have gone into this lure. I've been crafting lures for 25 years now, and this has been a process that's taken a long time to come together. There's a whole lot in it, and in this video I'm also going to share with you the conditions, how and where to fish, to give you the confidence and to understand how to apply this lure to get your jack fishing going. It's nearly 20 prototypes and, you know, dimensions and things like smaller than 0.2 of a millimeter that I've had to work down into to be able to get the tail action on this thing that is unique and absolutely kills it on Mangrove Jack. This has been built off a small herring. All of the dimensions, I've started with a herring, I started with a small bait and used the profile, the thickness of the body, the shape and everything, how it stalls when it stops in the water. I've looked at the bait movement and the patterns that get going when a fish is triggered by a bite time or it's being spooked. This isn't specifically a skip casting lure. You can skip it. It's been designed into the body and the build with the EWG and everything, but burning this along pontoons and being able to run this down rock walls, slow roll, high speed burn, burning this out of mangrove areas, that's what it's been designed to do. Like my soft glide, I had a true tail design with that soft glide, and there's a reason for that subtle movement of the tail that triggers fish. On the fall, this has that movement built into it as well, just like my glide. But it's got a hybrid tail, which is a paddle tail that's been designed differently to what you're going to see on nearly every paddle tail. If you have a look at the shape of that and how it sits off the body, that allows it to work at super slow speeds or burn, but when you stop this lure, you can almost fish it like a jerk bait. A slow sinking jerk bait is how you can even work this lure to trigger that bite. So as it falls, this tail waves on the way down like nothing you've seen, and when you fish it, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. The body, as you come up, you can see that it's got a stinger hook. Now that stinger in my testing has 4x'd my catch rates. On the packet I've written it'll double your hookups, but in my testing it's multiplied it by 4. 4 times the number of fish that I catch on the front there come in on the back stinger. This has been a key feature to build that into a lure that doesn't affect the paddling tail of the plastic, and I've built in a whole system in there that works so that you still have the ultimate tail action and you have that stinger, and you can raise that up and lower it down depending on where you want to position it on the bait to keep it as weedless and as snag free as possible. It's mounted in there with a tiny little soft bead, and you can see that bead in there. You can replace those. You can put, like, if you want to really ramp that up so that it is really sticky, you can dab a little bit of like super glue, like Loctite gel I use, just on that little bead if you want, and that'll prevent it from moving up. But as it is, as it comes, it's perfect. You don't need to touch it. You can fish it straight out of the pack. This EWG has been years in the making to get it bulletproof, strong, sharp, and weighted perfectly to allow this bait to get deeper than other skip casting and other slow to fast retrieving plastics. This little EWG has everything you need to get into the jack's face during your session and later into the day. Being able to chase jacks
is all about chasing the dark, chasing that darkness, the shadows, finding those shadows and being able to fish into them, whether that's a depth out of your eyesight when the sun's peering down, or being able to drop it down a bank. You want to find those shadows and fish those shadows. That's where the jacks are. They're not out in the clear water nearly all the time. It's very rare to get a jack out in clear, sunlit water. They fish the shadow edges and the deep dark shadows in around that cover. This EWG, and it comes in a whole range of colours. It comes in like, this is a glow, it comes with a pearl, there's a black, there's some UV, hot UV charge colours that allows you to just choose whatever you want to fit to a bait and go after your jacks with like a bite indicator, like a hot spot on a bait. And that EWG has been coloured and clear coated, twice clear coated. This is a custom built hook setup, right, from my lure box. That's what I've spent a lot of time doing so that you can fish them straight out of the pack with the most dialed setup you can find. And the weighting has been designed specifically. As you can see the shape of that lead in there, that's taken a long time to get right so that when you stop this lure, unlike anything else, it doesn't fall like that. There's no bait fish that swims down like that. And that's what all the other plastics are doing. A level fall or a slight nose down fall is a much more realistic movement with a tail going that looks just like a bait as it's going down. And you'll notice that's what's in here. So I'm getting jacks when I'm stalling, jerk bait fishing this thing, okay? Burning it along timber, stopping out a foot out off the end of the timber, bang, they grab it. Whereas a lot of jacks, if you stop a lure and it goes nose down, they'll turn, they'll refuse, you know, they're not going to take that bite a lot of the time, and that's why this thing's catching more jacks. So a key part of this, understanding the value in something like this, is understanding firstly the profile of the lure, how it moves in the water. So think about bait when it's spooking, herring, small whiting, mullet, gars, small gars. Think about how they move when the bite is on and it's spook time. They move in a direction and they don't just fall to the bottom real slow, okay? They're moving and changing their speed as they come out from cover. If you're running these along pontoons, you want to burn that thing along pontoons. A medium burn gets it going and hums and calls those jacks in. The build of the lure, it's a PVC plastic, so you can repair it. If it gets chewed up, you can repair it, but it's not going to melt your other plastics in the box. I keep these in the clamshell, and that's how you should fish them. You want that tail not bent out of action, but you can heat these up. If you boil water and sit them in there for like 30 seconds to a minute, it'll return if you end up like kooking and bending these tails. It has a memory to it that it will return to its original shape. I also bring a lighter, and if it gets bitten up, you can repair it by, you know, welding it back together or using a hot knife carefully. But it's really important to me that this PVC material is what I used, because I didn't want to lose any tail thump, and you get the heaviest thump with this tail compared to the other materials. And I just think this PVC plastic is more user friendly over time. It's much easier to rig when you rig the spare tails. When you retrieve this at a medium speed or a slower speed, it goes deeper than other 1/4 ounce, 1/6 of an ounce lures, and it gets into those positions where the jacks are more comfortable to bite. And that's been a key feature of what I've been trying to work towards with this lure. Still easy enough to skip cast, great for throwing around pontoons, but it gets deeper than those other 1/4 ounce, 1/6 ounce and lures like that. It's 9.3 grams, that little jig head, and it gets down just out of sight, which is a confidence depth for me when I'm fishing. If that light's penetrating and I can see my lure, it's a key thing that once you get out of that depth and into the darker patches, the jacks are more likely to come and grab it. You can run it, and I run it when I'm burning pontoons. I take the EWG out and I'll fish with like a 4.0 heavy jig head, like a traditional size jig head. You don't want anything less than a 3/8 in the front of it. They're the sort of jig heads that are going to work perfectly when you're burning pontoons or rolling rock bars with these things. The EWG keeps it out of the structure and away from hooking up when you're thrown into heavy structure. Now I want you to think about the bait that get around in our canals and our creeks. Think about the slender profile. If you've got a herring, it looks like that, and I know because I've measured them all and looked at the shape of a herring. Okay, a little garfish, it's the same kind of dimensions that you're going to be retrieving with this jack burner from bottom up, and a lot of the jacks are seeing it from below. So that slender profile has been really key in me bringing it in, tightening it up. It's made a lot of headaches to try and work through, but I've got there and this thing is perfect. You want that slender profile. It's going to increase your numbers when you're chasing Mangrove Jack in and around the creeks and pontoons. How does a mullet move when it's scared? Not a mullet that's cruising when there's no bite on, but if you've seen mullets spooked or gar getting spooked along edges of mangrove creeks, or herring that are getting pumped around pontoons and in canals, think about the retrieve that would match that and how it'd move and the speeds that you can vary to try and instigate a bite. I want to give you as much information as I can about the conditions, how to fish these lures, when and where to fish them. So let's get stuck into that. Now, my favourite places to fish for jacks are little tiny creeks, okay? Mangrove lined creeks with deep edges, undercut mangrove roots and things like that. That's where you want to go throwing these, especially with that EWG standard in there like that. But you can roll rock bars in canals, you can burn along heavy timber. It's great along heavy timber, down where they can get to it and they can eye it in. And you can also fish canals, and warmer water is what you're looking for, and you want to be fishing the shadows. The jacks are so dialed into, and they're so light sensitive, that fishing the shadows is absolutely key. Now that can be anything from an overcast day or a rainy day like this where the light changes on a bank that's exposed to sunlight, and there can be moments like that, but generally find the darkest, deepest shadows you can, and where that edge is, the shadow edge, is absolutely gold. They feed along that as the bait tries to scoot around where they can see, and as soon as it gets into those deep dark pockets, the jacks are ready to feed. The design behind this, so it gets down lower, allows you to fish later into the day. As that sun rises up over those trees, you still want to be throwing in and bringing it down deeper with that tail still cranking, and that's a key to this design. So there's some of the things that you want to look for. You want to be looking for that big heavy timber. Jacks often assemble, especially early season like September, October, November, assemble themselves up in creeks chasing the bait in a hierarchical sense. The big structures have the big fish or the schools of fish. It's not always the case, but often that's how it plays. The root balls of mangroves that are exposed, they're the sorts of things that you want to be looking for. Deep branches and brush piles, if you've got stuff pushed up into areas, that's the kind of stuff that you want to be targeting. And it's about, if you're thinking where to fish, this has to be right in their face. You've got to get this as deep as you can. So casting accuracy, I've said this for years through my channel with jack fishing, casting accuracy is number one. So this is a challenge for you guys that have got these, is to develop your fishing, enhance your craft, work on it and get your casting accuracy as dialed as it can be. Where to fish, if I say a pontoon, you want to be that far or closer away from the edges of the pontoon. Whether it's the front edge, which I love, or the sides as you go, or dragging it underneath the pontoon, getting this as close as you can to those deep dark shadows is absolutely fire. The biggest jacks that I get are generally around those pontoons in the canals on the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Northern Rivers, things like that. That's probably where you're going to get your real beast fish, but fishing up in those creeks, you never know what you're going to get. I'm going to take you now through the gear and how I like to fish for these mangrove jacks, and there's a few ways you can roll, and this is just a guide. If you've already got your setup dialed and everything, you don't necessarily want to go spending a whole heap of time and money finding new gear. You can use what you've got as a starting point and learn from there. The best advice I can give you is casting accuracy and time on the water. But I've got no doubt that having decent gear and tuned drags, smooth drags, good stuff makes it easier. So this is my guide for the gear that's going to help you. I love my 20-pound gear for Mangrove Jack. I'd probably never really ever go underneath that. And that could be the straight through fluorocarbon that I use when I'm casting on pontoons and along edges. It can be the spinning gear that I run if I'm fishing around mangroves with little lures and things like that, or running down rock walls and stuff. Or it can be the bait caster setup, 20-pound braid, 20-pound leader, or straight through fluorocarbon in the canals. That's how I like to fish. And if you're fishing real heavy structure, you might go a little bit heavier on your leader, like maybe 30 or 40. 40 would be the absolute max that I'd fish with myself. But that's what I use to get these fish out. Now with bait casters, these are so accurate, that's why I love them. They've got a smooth drag and they're a whole lot of fun to fish with and learn to fish with. They can be frustrating, especially if you're learning skip casting. But I've got a heap of skip casting videos that can help you. I'll link at the bottom of this video. Your spinning stuff, you can ramp your drag up. often you use a longer rod, but it's about casting accuracy. So don't think you have to go skip casting with a bait caster to get these lures working. You can use spinning gear. It's whatever gets that lure in the right position is the /1 choice for you. I love my PowerPro. It's really hardy braid, and then I run like a 20-pound FC rock is the gear that I use. So 20/20, I run 20-pound PowerPro braid and then 20-pound FC rock or a leader. There's tons of great fluorocarbon leaders out there, and I use the hard stuff because there's so much cover that they'll rip you through when you're trying to hang on and then get the thing into the boat. Now, we've talked a little bit about those casting areas where you're going to target, but you're looking for pressure points, and that can be an exposed root ball or a mangrove that sort of sticks out a little bit further, a piece of timber that creates a pressure point, or an edge or a corner, a peninsula that creates an edge of current. They're the areas where you're trying to focus your attention, and you want to approach it really quietly. You don't want to spook. These jacks are wary, and using boat noise and that kind of thing, like clunking hatches or running your Minn Kota at speed 8 when you're right on top of them, it really has an effect. You want to be quiet so you're not spooking fish, and that includes the bait. If you're really spooking lots of bait, the jacks tune into that. They know what's going on, especially in those quiet canals. When you're casting for mangrove jack, you want to stay back from the bank, but as long as you can still get that accuracy. The further you're back, as long as you're accurate, that's #1, but being further back, you're going to spook less fish. The angles that you want to throw at, if you can help it, you want to be throwing in front of the structure that's got the water pushing under it. The jacks are facing into the cover nearly the whole time, okay? So that you want to have something that lands in front of their eyes. And this is a key. If you can dial this in, here's a challenge to you. Try and land these things lightly. As light as you can get them, especially in quiet creeks. If you're throwing into that cover, like that far away from those big bits of heavy timber, if you can do a cast that is low and flat and then just click the bail into gear or click the reel into gear so that it pulls the lure and stalls it in the air so it then just drops softly, that is a key cast for me that produces a lot more jacks. That lighter landing is a real trick that works a lot of the time. It's different if you're fishing in super windy conditions or if you're fishing in a canal where you throw way past the pontoon with your lure. If you're throwing at a piece of cover, try and land it in there and just wait your turn to get in position for the best cast. Make that first cast the cracker. It's hard and frustrating when it doesn't quite come off, but that's what you're trying to achieve. Don't cast too early and then miss by a long way. That can have an effect on your second cast, which is the better one. So try and make your first cast the best cast and hang on for dear life. It's that first second that is your best chance. The first 1-2 seconds, the moment that water is penetrated and there's a sound and a ripple that comes out, that jack is ready, and it's gonna line your lure up, and it won't take long often. Your best chance comes in that first 5 seconds of the retrieve, or the first 5 seconds that the lure's coming across the pontoon. So that's when you want to be ready. Drag tight as you can get it without sort of breaking yourself off. But I run as heavy a drag as I possibly can without snapping the line and having that effect of snapping the line, and it's super smooth. Hopefully this video has given you some new insights into jack fishing and helps you to understand this lure. I didn't want to and I never want to put out a lure and not help you guys find your way with them. There's so much great stuff that comes along with a new lure, and being able to apply that to catch more fish, this thing is going to catch you more mangrove jack. As with all of the lures that I've released and these guide videos, I always share the value of catch, care and release. If you're catching more fish, caring for them and then being able to release them in good condition is really important to me. It's something I've practiced for a long time, and the best jack fishermen, a lot of them do it, which means that we're all catching more fish, including you. So being able to use, if you've got like an enviro net, these enviro nets are fabulous for looking after the fin structures of fish. Tearing fin structures because you haven't made the right choice about a net, almost criminal, especially if you're releasing a lot of fish. But it has an effect on the fish's predatory habits and the way that it can catch bait afterwards if you're tearing fins and things like that. Being able to look after yourself, so they have those teeth, they are real sharp and they can do a lot of damage when they throw their jaw. Just being mindful of that, careful. Wet hands, a brag mat. So a wet brag mat These are all on my website. A lot of the accessories that I use for jack fishing are on my website. So having a brag mat that you can wet down so that when you throw the fish down in the boat and you want to measure it and then get a photo or whatever, being able to do that with a wet mat is way better than just throwing it on the hot deck or the hot carpet. Having a good pair of pliers as well. You know, a good pair of pliers that can either cut the line effectively quickly and remove hooks quickly. These are available on my website, as are my hook files for keeping that hook and the stinger hook super sharp. So you can get all that stuff through my website. But the main message is look after those fish if you're going to return them, especially if you're going to put them back, so that we can all enjoy more jacks. Okay, now if you want more information on how to catch mangrove jack, I've got a library of stuff on YouTube, and the best information that I've shared over the years has been shared in these downloadable films. Now, they were DVDs in years gone by, but Monster Jacks, the Jack Guide, and then there's skip casting stuff in the Gold Coast, Kayaker's Guide to the Gold Coast, which has a whole heap of detailed information on how to go about this stuff when you're chasing your jacks. The other thing you can do is just follow my YouTube channel. There's going to be a heap of videos coming out over the next 12 months using the jack burners that can help you understand the casting angles I spoke about, your retrieve speeds, how to set up, you know, an FG knot and the leader lengths and things like that. You want about 1 meter or more of a leader length for these jacks because they rip you into cover. All of that stuff is across my YouTube channel and with these downloadable films. It's all in there to help you guys catch your mangrove jacks and find your adventure as well. I'd love for you to share your catches with me. Please tag me. If you're posting up photos, I want to be able to see it and celebrate with you. Tag me at my lure box in those photos, and I'm going to be having prizes go out to anglers who are catching fish and sharing onto that at times. So there's going to be a whole heap of great prizes, including lures and apparel and stuff. I want you to go and find your mangrove jack adventure. Challenge yourself to refine your craft and go and get those fish, and let's celebrate it together. Go folks, on the burner. Yep, on. Got him. Big one. Big. Real big, mate. Guilty. Yeah, mate.